Hello there. This is James, and you're watching OneRoyal, and it's live. In today's program, we want to discuss how the Germans decided who was going to be their main party to form a new government for them, as well as that, look into maybe the last or one of the things which could really make or break the S&P 500, especially as it experienced one of the worst weeks in recent times last week. Anyway, before we get into all of that, though, don't forget these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research and do your due diligence, and of course, know the risks at hand before entering any trade. With that out the way, let's get started. So first of all, I want to wish every single one of you a very happy Monday. But let's get straight into it. So yes, of course, we had the German elections yesterday, and the results were announced obviously early hours of this morning. And as anticipated or as expected, the conservative CDU/CSU party wins. Well, they got majority or a larger majority of the vote, 28.6% of the vote, though they still have to form some form of coalition, which the leader, I will butcher his name, Merz of the party, said he will, well, he's more than confident he will be able to form a government by Easter. But he also said this, and this is very interesting. This is very interesting. He said, the absolute priority, I can't get my teeth in today, is to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible so they can achieve real independence from the USA. Now, as we know, of course, last week there was a lot of drama, with the EU emergency EU sort of meeting that Macron organized, or the group therapy session, which I like to call it, where you have quite a few countries, all leading military in the EU, military countries. And to discuss several things. One, to obviously, they felt being left out of the negotiations with Russia for peace in Ukraine. And as well as that, to maybe discuss increasing their defense spending. So I think over the last couple of weeks, with comments made by J.D. Vance, the vice president in Munich 2 weeks ago, and obviously this recent Ukraine development, the EU are sort of looking at themselves saying, look, we need to take responsibility. We can't rely on the United States, especially as well, we have all these concerns with trade as well, these tariffs as well. So that's a very valid point. And I think we're going to see more and more of this, certainly coming out of the EU in the coming weeks. More talk about being independent and, getting stronger, becoming stronger. Because, like I say, they are sort of being a little bit lax with growth and development of their own. So that's an interesting comment. But like I say, you expect to hear more of that. As well as that, of course, keeping with the German elections, which is, again, sort of a sign of the times, really, with what is going on in the world. But the far right AfD party came in second with 20.8% of the vote. Now, the conservative CDU party said they are no way going to be doing any coalition, with them at all, come up to form the government. But again, it's a sign of the times that obviously, a lot of people are turning more to far right groups, far right opinions than they have done in the past. But like I say, it wasn't a surprise, too much of a big surprise. I was expecting to get quite a large percentage of the vote, but they came second with 20.8%. In the election. Knock-on effect for the market. Initially, really, we had a little bit of a bounce in the euro, okay, because obviously there was a bit of concern about the AfD party because they were very keen to leave the EU if they got into power. So obviously that's dodged a bullet there. They didn't get into power, so there we go. Anyway, leading on to what I think will be a pretty big event this week, and we're going to look at the markets in a moment because it is very, very interesting indeed. But I think this week, all eyes will be on Nvidia's earnings, which is due on Wednesday. On Wednesday. Now, I think this is going to be pretty big, and I tell you why. Because in my view, it's just my view, I think this result, or whatever their earnings says, could really make or break the S&P 500. And we're going to have a look at the S&P 500 in a moment. Because like I said at the beginning of this program, it had one of its worst weeks in recent memory last week. Okay. And the other thing about NVIDIA is that the Mag 7 in general are underperforming this year. The only exception so far has really been Meta. Meta's up around about 20% this year to date. Every other the Mag 7 companies, or the other 6, shall I say, are really underperforming. And there's a big worry about this, okay? It's because obviously the S&P's not recent, but bull run over the last couple of years have been driven by the Mag 7. So if you've got 6 out of the 7 not performing, then it's huge. And don't forget, like I say, why I think NVIDIA is going to be really important, because only a few weeks ago did it get sort of punched in the face by obviously DeepSeek. So it's going to be really interesting. And like I say, this is going to have potentially a big impact on the market, and how the market feels. Because moving on to the market, US equities are still on a decline. And this initial rot was caused by Walmart's earnings last week, because they have a sip of tea. By Walmart's earnings, because even though, like I say, the earnings was slightly better than expected, their forecast for 2025 and for 2026 was very negative. So, like I say, this is having a real bad knock-on effect. In fact, let's look at the market now, actually, because the S&P is actually, under 6,000 points. Okay, this is on a 30-minute chart. It's now currently trading at 5,990 points. Like I said, it's been on a really, if you look at the last couple of days, last trading days, we make it a daily, we can have a look at it. Friday was a really bad day. And it seems at the moment that it's continuing to be that way. So this is why I think NVIDIA is going to be really, really important. If we look at the NASDAQ as well, NASDAQ had a really bad day again on Friday. And again, looks like it's continuing now. What's interesting, though, is the VIX. Okay, so on a daily, as you can see, the VIX is beginning to pick up a little bit of steam. So don't forget, VIX is, a fear indicator. People start buying in the VIX when they're worried about the S&P 500 going down. Because the VIX is based on a number of put options bought against the S&P. So more people buying put options against the S&P 500, the VIX does well, which means people are nervous, or the investors are nervous. So this is why the VIX is doing quite well as well. So that's interesting to look at. So yeah, S&P 500 and Nasdaq. So I really think if we have a quick look at NVIDIA now, see how it's doing. In general, on the day, I think the market in general is all pretty negative. But I can't help but think NVIDIA this week could really make or break the S&P this week. On other news, Apple, because obviously they're very worried about tariffs, and they have a number of operations in China and in Mexico, which obviously would be impacted by tariffs. So they have said they are going to invest $500 billion in the US to create new plants and invest in the technology and create 20,000 new jobs. So obviously Donald Trump is very happy by this, and he's thanked them a lot. But this is the sort of move a lot of these big companies are going to have to start considering doing. I think this is why they're trying to chum up with Trump as well. That's one of the reasons as well. But anyway, that's another bit of news. It wouldn't be a program for me if I didn't talk about it just once. Gold is still hovering around an all-time high. Of course, it's currently trading at $2,938 an ounce. So obviously still people are buying into gold because people are obviously still a little bit nervous. Before we look at the market again, let me just actually let's look at the market now, and then look at the currencies and gold and things like this. So obviously starting off with gold, like I say, again, we still looks like we're holding that potential uptrend, trading at like say $2,948, $38, sorry. Euro dollar, like I said, it had a slight, bounce today. If I go on a 30 minutes, you can see it a bit more clearly. Where is my 30-minute? There it is. As you can see, at the beginning of the session, actually trading above 1.05, which hasn't been there for a while. But then since then, it's sort of like the excitement of the German elections calmed down. And then now it's, like I say, trading back down to where it was before the elections, where it basically closed on Friday. The British pound cable, again, pretty much negative as well. Still holding, though, above that key level of 1.26. So it's still holding above 126. So that's key. And let's have a look at some other things as well. Let's have a quick look actually at Apple. Okay, I'm on the back of their announcement. Okay, so on a 30-minute, obviously, I think it looks like they did open the market in a bullish candle. So they opened the market quite bullish, but then since then, I think it's probably following suit with the US equities as well. Euro Stoxx 50. Again, we go on a longer period. This has obviously been the starlet of European indices of late, hitting an all-time high. But then since then, we've obviously seen it sort of the excitement around it is calmed down a little bit on that as well. Still trading around 5,439 points. Again, like I say, this was also boosted with the defense stock rise last week following obviously that meeting in Paris on Monday. Anyway, let's see what else is happening this week. It's not just about NVIDIA, though I do think that's going to be really, really important and definitely worth watching. But let's have a look at other things which is happening this week. Tuesday, I think, is going to be a big one. Another key economic indicator, US consumer confidence. So we've already seen Walmart's concern about the consumer. Let's hear it from the consumer themselves. See what they say. So that's going to be pretty key information. Wednesday, US new home sales. How many people are buying new homes? So that's going to be interesting to look into as well. US durable goods, So let's find out how many people are willing to buy things like cars, motorbikes, boats, or is that dropping as people are getting more and more nervous and saving money for groceries like eggs? I mean, Chris, you can buy a car for a price of eggs at the moment. That's a joke, obviously, but eggs are very expensive. It's a big problem. Thursday, we have US GDP. Expectation is for it to come in lower at 2.3%. Previous reading was 3.1%. And finally, keeping with inflation, because inflation, again, is one of those things in the background, which is slowly beginning to concern people. We have Friday's German CPI. Now, don't forget, this is indeed a live show, so you can talk to me anytime you want, or just share me your opinions. Let me know what your thoughts are on the market. Do you think NVIDIA is going to break or make or break the S&P 500? Do you think this drop or where the S&P 500 at the moment we're seeing is temporary? Or do you think this is the beginning? Or do you think this is the beginning of the rot, which a lot of us have been expecting for a long, long time? Or simply say hello, or ask me a question. If you're watching me on YouTube and you're maybe not watching this show live, by all means, go into the comments below and leave a question or say hi. And if you leave a question in the comments, I will see them and I will obviously answer the question next time I go live. So bear that in mind too. So you have that option as well. Okie dokie. I don't think there's no comments. Okay. All right. Okay. If there is no comments, not to worry. Don't forget, I go live every single day, at least once a day. If there's a big news event or there's a breaking news, I will go live more to cover any such events like this. We always go live. So obviously we're available at the moment on the blog, on YouTube, and obviously we can see us on Twitter, but we'll be on Facebook and Instagram soon. So we're expanding, as you can see, at quite a rapid place. On another note, just so you know, I do a webinar series on a Wednesday, and we're doing a new one this week, which is what's been requested from previous people who watched the webinar, which is going to be on fundamental analysis part 1, which is commodities. So I'll be tomorrow when I go live. I'll leave the link in the description so you can come along and watch that on Wednesday as well. Okay, if there is no questions or no one wants to say hi, no problem. Now, don't forget, these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should ever be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research, do your own due diligence, and of course, know the risks at hand before entering any trade. Till next time, every single one of you, trade safe.